Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Smells Like. I'm Josh, and today I'm reviewing the often duplicated, never replicated fragrance innovation that is Creed's Aventus. That's right. You've heard it talked about before. You've heard all the love. You've heard all the hate. You've heard about all the different clones, all the imitators. But I'm here to tell you that nothing comes close to the original. This is a fragrance that really changed the fragrance game when it came out back in 2010. There was nothing like this when it came out. And really, this fragrance single-handedly started its own genre, really, its own new category of fragrance that fragrance houses around the world have tried to create their own version of. This is a fragrance that has multiple Facebook groups that are devoted to just talking about this fragrance. This is a fragrance that people obsess over. This is a fragrance that people hate. And for me, this is a fragrance that I love. So before we get into what Aventus smells like, I just wanted to give a quick thank you to everyone who watched my first video. This is my second video here at Smells Like, and to everyone who watched the first video, I just want to give my most heartfelt thank you for all the great comments and support, and for everyone who has subscribed so far, welcome and thank you. So to me, Aventus smells like sophistication, luxury, it smells like masculinity, and it just smells badass. When I wear Aventus, I feel badass. This fragrance is badass. Notes for Aventus are as follows. In the top you have blackcurrant, bergamot, apple, and pineapple, making for a fruity opening in the top. In the heart, there's some nuance. You have some florals, believe it or not, from rose and jasmine. You have some earthy notes like patchouli and woody note of birch in the base. More earthy note from oak moss. Some sweetness from vanilla, and then the ambergris and musk that really are the stars of the show here, or some of the stars of the show here. But first, let's talk about that opening. Probably more famous than the ambergris in this fragrance is the pineapple in the opening. For a citrus-based opening with the bergamot, it also has pineapple playing the role of a citrus in many ways. It has a citric, bright zestiness to it. And mixed with the bergamot, it really makes for a fantastic opening. When you add the crispness of apple and the richness of blackcurrant to that, you really get a very well-rounded, bright, fruity opening that when you first smell it, just really takes you back. It's just a really invigorating and also alluring opening. As this fragrance moves into the heart, you actually get these sort of, I think of them as almost wisps of floral notes of rose and jasmine. They really come in as sort of a nuance between the bright, shining citrus fruits and the richness of that fruit, the playful nature of the fruit. It's a little bit more of a breeze of the floral notes that come through. The jasmine is gorgeous, and under those you start to get some earthy nuances. You get the woody notes from the birch, you get the earthy nature of the patchouli. After the heart, then we go into a little bit more of the grounding and the base of the fragrance with the oak moss, the ambergris, the musk, and the vanilla. Now, vanilla is listed as a base note, but I can detect vanilla from pretty early on in the fragrance. And depending on the batch, and we'll get into batches in just a minute, vanilla can play a pretty large role in this fragrance, but it isn't something you would even necessarily pick out on its own. It just lends a sweetness. It's a supporting player to all of the other notes throughout. It lends a sweetness to the fruit. It lends a roundedness to some of the other aspects that maybe could have been harsh on their own, but with the vanilla have a softer nature to them. Now, it's fun to talk about the notes in a fragrance like this, especially when the ingredients used in this fragrance are said to have been the best quality ingredients taken from all over the world. However, for me, this fragrance is strongest in its overall composition. This is one of the first fragrances that really opened my eyes to the idea of the entire composition. Aventus just works when all of the notes are working together and you smell it, not trying to pick anything out, but when just trying to smell it as one smell. And in that capacity, it is awesome. That's where it just smells like a masculine, sophisticated smell. That's where it gets its strength, I think. That's what makes it such a worthy composition, is that all these great notes, all-stars, standouts on their own, come together to make a really great piece of artwork that is so fun to wear and gets amazing notice from others around you. This fragrance could really be worn in any situation, from work to play to dates to just hanging out, relaxing by yourself. This fragrance works. And if you're like me and just love the way this smells, then you can't help but want to just keep smelling it and keep coming back and keep spraying it to start the journey over again. Now, Creed uses natural ingredients, at least some, and they claim to use a very special process in creating their perfumes that utilizes those natural ingredients in a unique way. The result of this is not unlike a vineyard that puts out different vintages of wine from the same vineyard at different times. Depending on the weather, the environmental conditions, there are different nuances to the different vintages that come from that vineyard. Creed is similar in that they have different batches that are made from those natural ingredients, and environmental conditions and other factors can cause those batches to have different nuances. They aren't the most noticeable of differences, especially to an untrained nose or someone who hasn't smelled a lot of different batches. If you're just smelling Aventus for the first time, it's going to smell great. It's going to be a good experience, regardless of the batch. But if you get into it and smell a lot of different batches, there are what I'll call noticeable differences. They aren't huge differences, but they are noticeable differences. And that is actually made for sort of a subculture or a hobby within a hobby of people that love this fragrance and actually enjoy collecting the different batches and getting into finding the different nuances between them. There are more desirable batches than others, and of course the older batches tend to go at a higher premium. But regardless of whether you just want one bottle of Aventus to enjoy or really want to get into all the different batches and things like that, this is a great fragrance for any fragrance enthusiast. For a 100 ml bottle currently in the US, it is $425, which is a pretty high price tag. And particularly the latest renditions of this fragrance lack a little bit in terms of performance, especially compared with earlier versions of this fragrance, and that could be due to new regulations about ingredients, particularly oak moss was one of the ingredients in this fragrance, and that's a fixative which causes the fragrance to last longer. Oak moss in its pure form has been outlawed in the European Union where this fragrance is created, and so the note of oak moss is now has to be some sort of a synthetic blend, and so naturally the fragrance doesn't last as long maybe as it used to. But for me, I still get good performance. Not great performance, but good. I get about 8 hours on average of performance. I would say the first hour is really heavy sillage, where people are gonna smell you, and then it starts to die down around hour 2, but really I would say the first 3 hours are where it's at for this fragrance in terms of the performance. After that, it does start to get a little bit closer to the skin and wears it as a skin scent on into about the 8-hour mark for me. Now, I've had times when I can still smell this 10 or even 12 hours later, especially on my clothes. But my best estimate is about 8 hours, at least in my experience with the modern batches of Aventus. Now, if the price tag is daunting, don't give up hope for owning this yourself. There are places that you can purchase this fragrance for much less than retail, and that includes online discounters such as FragranceNet. I believe you can get a bottle right now for around $300 on FragranceNet, but you can find them for even less than that on Facebook fragrance groups or other online forums where people buy and sell fragrances. A couple of my favorites are Fragrance Swap on Facebook and the Aventus Lounge on Facebook, which is a great source for all things Aventus. So I really recommend checking out the Aventus Lounge if you want to learn more or purchase some Aventus for yourself. The bottom line for this fragrance is I love it and other people love it on me. And that makes for a pretty good time. Anytime I find a fragrance that I enjoy, that others seem to enjoy too, that really is the perfect storm. And there's really no time that I would feel like I couldn't wear this. If anything, I have to limit my wearings with this one just so that I don't get tired of it, or more so that my nose doesn't become so acclimated that I don't notice it anymore or for as long as maybe I would. So that's it for this review of Creed's Aventus, the legend, and really one of the greatest in my book. If you had a good time, go ahead and hit the like button, and if you'd like to maybe do this again sometime, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you again sometime very soon. Thanks so much for watching.